Patience been a virtue, get it, we gon' step by step it. The valley teach you things the mountains ignore, that's why we step by step it.
Welcome, another episode, Belleme Backstage. Today's guest is someone that we're super happy to introduce because we've been working with her for quite some time. She's part of the squad, she's part of the team, and now everyone else gets to be here. Her name is Isabelle. Isabelle, welcome.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me on the team. I'm ready to have a good chat.
Absolutely. So I guess to start out, we've known each other for such a long time, since you were a baby, honestly. And I know when I first moved to New York with the aspirations of building Belleme, I obviously knew I was going to need some people to help me, reach my goals. And knowing that you had such a background in social media, but also you are creative in your own right, and theater and dance, I figured this would be the perfect way for us to not only continue working together, but potentially help each other too. So definitely share your backstory in terms of how you even got into dance and theater.
Yeah, I started dancing when I essentially started walking. I started dancing at 3. So I was a really, really energetic baby. My family called me the Energizer Bunny because I was always the one just going, to the point where I wouldn't even want to sit down to eat dinner because I didn't want to miss a second of like being up and just moving and going and whatever. So I was in dance pretty much immediately. And I was always the last one to leave. Always the last one in the studio to leave because it just felt like another home off the rip. It just felt right. It felt right. And I know me talking about my 3-year-old self, it's not like I remember exactly in that moment.
You made that decision. I'm going to be a dancer.
No, yeah, exactly. No, that wasn't even it. It actually was, I was like 8 when I had that moment, that aha moment. I was at the movie theaters with my uncle. And we went to see Hairspray, which was the film adaptation of the Broadway musical production. And I just remember feeling this overwhelming feeling in the chair, like I just could not sit. I wanted to jump in the screen and dance with them. And that's in that moment, I was like, yeah, that's it. That's what I want. I want that. That whatever that made me feel, I want that all the time. And so ever since then, I just knew. And the stage has always felt incredibly comfortable for me. Being in front of people, public speaking, crowds, all of that stuff. I'm a raging extrovert. It never scares me. And it always felt right. I just always knew. Yeah. So then down the line, I always made sure to incorporate it in my life at some point. So I was doing drama club in middle school. I was doing drama club in high school. So I was doing all of the school musicals, the school plays. I minored in theater in college, and I did local productions over the summer at home. And if I wasn't doing theater, I was dancing, or if I wasn't dancing, I was doing theater. And it was something that I very early on refused to let go of.
That's incredible at 8 years old to feel so passionately about something that at that time you hadn't actually been on stage before, right? It was just more so you were in the audience.
Yeah.
And you're like, that looks super dope.
Yeah. It's funny because at that point I had been dancing for a little bit and, doing the whole like spring recital at the end of the year and all of that stuff. I was also playing piano at the time too. So I had, piano recitals too. But I guess in that particular moment, I don't know what it was. It was just some sort of flip, like that sort of switched. It just like flipped in that moment when I was in the theater, and I was just like, yeah, exactly that. That's what I want. So I knew it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess, you're go very far back into dance and being creative in general. Where did it start to be like, hey, I'm really good at social media. Like I can, say things in a way that resonates with people. I can make people feel emotional. Like how did that transition happen?
I would say, in addition to being a creative, I've always been really strong in writing and in words in English. I've growing up, what was it called? ELA. I was always really good at like ELA growing up, and I was an English major in college, and then I got my master's in creative writing. So I've always really been, kind of in those spaces a lot. And so being able to put the two together, being creative, but also having my writing background, kind of brought me into social media a little bit, because as technology continues to develop, as social media continues to develop, we now realize that social media is such, it's a really big part into a lot of our lives, whether it's professional or not. It's a way for us to stay in contact with people that may not be around, that may not be very close in proximity. It's a way for you to kind of, push your brand further, like something with Belleme, you know what I mean? But even if it's not just a clothing line, even if it's just you yourself is a brand as well. So it's like you decide how you want to kind of create your voice with social media. And so when it came to that, before social media, I had really strict parents. I did not have a phone until high school. So I didn't have social media until I was like 14, 15. So I was late in the game. Right. But before that, I had a digital camera, and I used to just make vlogs in my room, talking to no one. I didn't post it anywhere. It was just on my camera. And I don't know, I was just having a lot of fun.
So you saw what was coming down the pipe. That's what it was. You were practicing. All right, I got you.
I guess so. I guess you could say it in that way. So it didn't feel very foreign once I kind of transferred over to social media and being on Instagram and just kind of putting myself out there. And then when I started to incorporate more of my artistry and my creativity in that, one of the biggest things that I had to get over was the fact that I was going to be perceived not only by the general public, but by people who are very close to me. A lot of people say that you feel really comfortable speaking to strangers instead of speaking to your best friend sometimes. And it's because your best friend doesn't really strangers don't have pre-existing context about you. Or, so there's no space for judgment. Whereas opposed to if you're speaking to your best friend, you know how your best friend's going to react for certain things if you say, because they know you really well. And so that can freak you out when it comes to showing what you really love to do, because now you're being really vulnerable and you're putting it out here
to people that are going to be around that actually know you. Yeah,
exactly. So once I got past that fear, I realized that corny saying of like, there's no one out there like you. It's true though. There is truly no one out there like you. You know what I mean? There's an individual in all of us. And so when you really understand that, and then you get past the fact that people may perceive you and people may have their opinions about you, that's totally fine. But you're in the driver's seat. You're the one who's kind of forming the visuals and the marketing and the brand and the voice, and however you interpret that, that's solely up to you.
What you said was so powerful though, because I do think for a lot of people, having that internal conversation about being comfortable with expressing your full personality, like your full persona, even to people that knew you or to strangers, being able to overcome that, I think personally, is the difference between people that are creatives and are not. Because at the end of the day, we all have the same capacity to think about abstract concepts and different ideas. Yeah. It's those of us who are comfortable or confident enough or vulnerable enough to express those in a broader medium, right, and then people can relate to it. So that's really dope that you were able to overcome and like kind of get over the hump there, yeah, and go ahead and dance. I guess my question to you would be like, especially now with social media, especially TikTok, dance has become such a part of like society. There's so many different dance like stuff that come up or trends and whatnot. Do you, for someone that's been passionate about dance for so long, do you think that helps or hurts, I guess, the perception of someone that's looking at dance as like a career?
Yeah. Okay. So I've actually had this conversation a couple of times with fellow dance friends, because sometimes when you go on TikTok, obviously, the videos are short, they're quick. The challenges are usually, you have to be in one frame. So you're kind of dancing underneath yourself. You're not traveling very much. You're not really kind of breaking out very often. Or those are the ones that go viral anyway. And sometimes some dancers sometimes they take it as offensive, because people would be like, oh, that's dancing. But it's like, no, what I'm actually doing is dancing. For me personally, the way I see it is, it's how you use it. You know what I mean? For me, I don't mind a little 1-2 step on TikTok. That's fun. It's fun. You know what I mean? Like if you think of it as just pure fun, I'm going to do it. That's a lot of fun. And then I use that as a part of my personal brand to show like, yeah, I can do a little whatever on TikTok, but I also am in the studio and I'm going to conventions, I'm going to intensives, I'm going to classes all the time, I'm training, I'm teaching, things like that. So it's like, for me personally, I think it really depends on how you use it. I don't think it's I don't think they're two completely separate entities. I think if you understand the balance and being able to incorporate them together, then you'll be able to use that as a strength. I don't see it as an issue.
How do you like personally correlate dance with fashion?
One of my biggest things that I talk about, and I'm really open about it, is that at this point, about 13 years ago, I had a very serious spinal fusion surgery that took me out of the dance game for a couple of years because I had to do physical therapy and, get my strength back up and understand my new body. In that time, I want to say that's when I started to look at different things where it's like, okay, I can't physically dance right now, but I still have something to express and I still have something to say. How can I do that? So then I kind of started to look at clothes and starting to put together my own style. And then now that I can dance and I'm back in the game and I'm doing all of that, how can I put that together? Because I always say that dance says everything that I can't say, which is crazy because I always have something to say. I always talk. That's wild. But I would say that being able to just kind of incorporate it together, because it's all of it is expression. All of it has something to say. So if you're able to get those words all together, then that's how you're able to tell people who you are without having to say it with words. You know what I mean? So because with dance, I'm not talking to you. I'm showing you what this song is making me feel, or I'm showing you these different skills that I can do. And then with that said, you see what's on me too at the same time. That's also another expression. I'm wearing basketball shorts because they're super breathable, or it's summer outside. It gives you extra context into the environment and the person that you're kind of paying attention to,
Where's that fun fact is before Izzy even joined the team, she had bought a pair of our Belleme shorts that we came out with in 2021. And there's so many videos, if you go on her TikTok, where she's rocking them in. Yeah. And I was like, yo, this makes so much sense. I got to ask her if she'd be part of the brand because, she already rocks it on her norm anyway.
Yeah, they are my favorite.
What was your first, experience with Belleme? What was the first time that you saw the brand?
Yeah.
What was your thought process?
Well, Alan and I, we go way back. We grew up together. Our moms are best friends. So we grew up together. And when Alan moved to New York, and then he started to really take Belleme seriously, and I was like, okay, obviously he's family. I want to support him. And so let me go on this website and let me check this out. And I was like, wait a minute, this is actually really good stuff. Hold on. This isn't just support now. This is just genuine, you know what I mean? This is genuine backing because this is really good stuff. In addition to, of course, me supporting family. And so when I went onto the website and I started to take a look around, I don't know, the gray shorts really spoke out to me, I swear. And so I bought those, and then they just, I don't know, they started to become a staple for me. I started to wear them all the time, going to the studio all the time, because they were super comfortable. And they were perfect for, the studio space that I was in, too, as well. So I also didn't have any shorts. So
win-win.
So it just it ticked a lot of boxes for me. That was my first official, I want to say, exposure to Belleme. And then that's how I was able to kind of talk about it with my parents and bring it home and really show them this is what Alan's making. You see this kind of stuff that he's doing now and kind of spreading it around. And then when I go to the studio and I'm talking to dance friends and be like, oh, those shorts are pretty cool. Be like, actually, let me tell you about them, So then I started to really get into Belleme. And then one day Alan kind of asked me, he was like, hey, listen, we could use some extra hands on the team if you would be open to it. And I said yes without hesitation.
In general, in my experience personally, dancers always have kind of a very edgy, next level style, more free flowing, a lot of things like that.
100%. And that streetwear feel, that streetwear swag, it's always.
So that feedback from dancers is actually something that we pay attention to.
100%.
People who have very edgy style, people who are not afraid to express themselves. So I kind of point that back to those experiences that you had where you're you're talking to your friend versus a stranger, somebody who has preconceived notions of you.
Yeah.
Then you can come out and present yourself in a slightly different way, but you're opening yourself up to judgment. Right. Because have you experienced that within your friend groups, or I guess from a dancing perspective, whenever you did a new thing, trying to recreate yourself?
Yeah, I would definitely say when I started to consistently post dance videos, and then when I was in my hometown running into people I went to high school with, went to middle school with, they'd be like, oh my God, I'm seeing your Instagram, dude. Like, I'm seeing those videos, and I'm like, oh my God, you're actually seeing them? You're perceiving me? Oh, that's wild. That's wild. But then once, at first, like my initial reaction was just being like, oh my God, no, you saw it? Wow, that's cool. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. But then once I started to really stand in it, where I was like, yeah, this is what I do. This is who I am, and this is what I love to do, and I'm just sharing this with all these people. And if you like it too, the more the merrier. Right. That's great. Yeah. So again, it brings me back to that whole thing where it's like once you get over that initial fear of getting perceived by not only the public, but like your inner circle and the people around you and people who have a closer access to you as opposed to the general public, then honestly, you're golden. Yeah. Go for it. Yeah, there's really not much standing in your way once you're past that. And yeah, it brings me also like one of my dance friends, she says it all the time. She's like, Izzy, she's like, no one ever intimidates you. She's only known me for a couple of, maybe 2 to 3 years at this point. We got really close through dance, and now she's one of my closest friends. And she was saying, like, every time we go into a studio, it could be our first time taking from a brand new teacher. You're never freaked out. You could be standing next to a professional working dancer who just got off stage with, like, Justin Bieber or something like that. You do not care who you're standing next to.
That's awesome.
It never freaks you out. And it was like, yeah, because I got past that fear. You know what I mean? I got past that fear of being perceived by, like, said professional dancer. I understand you're better than me. You're a professional. You're a working professional. But I paid for this spot just as much as you did. And I deserve to be just as much as you do, too. You're here for training, and so am I. So once you're again, I'm a broken record at this point, but just that initial fear at first, once you're past it, it really...
No, I think that's super valuable. There's someone that's listening to this right now and may be afraid to actually make that next move, and you know, they're looking at you. So that's really great that you shared that. I really appreciate you sharing that, your journey in that regard. I guess my last question would be in terms of, you know, the brand with Belle, and a lot of people might find it interesting that our biggest buyers and supporters are women, because our items are very unisex and they go both ways. But I would say that, you know, we've dropped like hoodies and crew necks and sweatshirts, but women are the ones that are really buying this stuff. And so I'm curious from your perspective, you know, in terms of the brand and what we've been doing and the direction that we want to go, A, what have you liked that we're doing? And then B, where are you hoping that like we might be able to take the brand?
Yeah. Well, what I want to say is, shout out to the fellow women. Appreciate you. Thank you very much. Please continue to support.
Let's go.
I will say, in what I've actually been hearing very often, this is more of a general sense. You know, when in the nightlife, a lot of people are like, women make or break kind of the venue space, right? When you're in a club space, it's like, who is filling up the room? Who is getting it going on the dance floor? Who is like taking all of the different videos and like, you know, posting the different reviews on TikTok and doing all those things? Most of the time it's women. And it's because when they're ready to support something, they are ready to support something. They will put their all into it. You know what I mean? And so me personally, I would say when it comes to Belleme, I do really appreciate, I've said it before, but I'll say it again. I do really appreciate how everything is unisex, because you have a lot more options to choose from. You can get literally anything you want, and rock anything you want. And also, again, from a personal perspective, me being a dancer in the studio where I'm wearing athleisure and I'm wearing things like big T-shirts, joggers, you know, caps, things like that. Like, those are the things that I'm going to go for personally, because those are the environments that I'm in. And that's what I think it calls for. So I really do appreciate that it's unisex. So I would say that's the biggest thing that I really like about Belleme. I think going forward, I've said it before.
Yeah. You can say it.
Well, you know what I'm about to say?
You can say it.
Shades. We need sunglasses so bad. I'm always one for years. I've always been wearing sunglasses with all of my outfits, so it's one of my staples, one of my go-tos. So I've been telling Alan for the longest time, you need to get sunglasses going somehow.
It's on the list.
It's on the list, but I think maybe accessories, just more accessories. Kind of you know, headwear and the hats are some of the most best-selling pieces for Belleme. So I was like something like a beanie, bandanas, just, you know, kind of expanding a bit more on headwear. would really help. Not only it wouldn't be repetitive because you're not creating the same exact design, but you're still within the same genre. And it doesn't mess with Belleme being unisex either, because anybody can get a beanie, anybody can get a bandana, things like that. So I guess I would say maybe expanding more on the accessories, but it's not like a note. I'm not saying like, oh, Belleme's doing it wrong. I'm just saying there's just more room for growth.
You had mentioned 2020 as the year that you got introduced to Belleme, but you've been doing
shit for
Belleme since college.
Yeah.
But the very interesting thing about 2020 was when you made the decision that you're going to be like, I don't care, I'm the face of Belleme.
Yeah.
I'm going to put 100% of myself behind it. And that's when things like really started to come together. So like, what made you make that decision? Like, where were you at mentally where you came to that?
That's a good question, man. I think I was at a point where I was in a relationship for the first time. Like, my wife, who I'm married to now, was my first official girlfriend ever. So,
what a story.
Okay, I didn't know that.
That's a different story for another day. But but I think at that point we were 2 years in, and I was really trying to figure out like what are the most important things to me at this point. Obviously, it's making sure that we're in a good place, but what does the future look like next? And Belle has always been something that's been super important to me, but I really wanted to take it the next level because this is now time I would be taking away from my relationship with Chris. So if I'm going to do that, I've got to put it all in. I've always looked at myself kind of like an athlete in the sense, or my mentality in that I need to stay focused. And Belle, if I'm going to make it into what I think it can be, it's going to require all of my time, all of my attention, all of the right people in my corner to help push it there. And I just felt like prior to 2020, it was always just me looking for inspiration and like, okay, maybe I can do it. Maybe I can make it. But by the time 2020 came around, especially with everything that had gone on, we launched in December. So it was after COVID. It was like life comes at you fast. You have no idea what's going to happen anymore. And I felt while I'm in New York, while I have my bro here in New York with me, who's been supporting me since day one, literally since college, like, let's actually go all in on this. Why are we wasting time? Time is of the essence. Like, we're not going to always have it. And so for me, that was really the fire that really like set after that.
I find it really interesting that with a lot of people, especially with creatives, and whenever you're putting yourself out there, there always comes that point where you really have to own the person that you're going to be becoming, because it exists in your mind before anybody else sees it.
Yeah.
But in order for those things to come to fruition, you have to like become that person in your own eye and in the public eye as well. And that's scary.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Right.
Because again, whenever you're putting yourself out there, things could go wrong. Things could go wrong. You could be perceived negatively. You can lose some relationships with people that you consider close to you or thought you were close to you, but maybe they're not the people that take you into the next part of your journey.
Exactly.
So I always find that so interesting that, everybody has that's in some sort of a public eye.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like a really, really cool part of your story.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks very much.
Patience been a virtue, get it, we gon' step by step it. The valley teach you things the mountains ignore, that's why we step by step it. Till you surpass the ones admired before.